Hello? Yep.
Have to stop.
Okay. Welcome back after your morning coffee. There are a few things we're going to try to do in this session. We'll have a little bit of a breakout twice during the session, about halfway through and towards the end. And let me just move on. And we're going to divide it into two parts. We're going to look at continuous professional development of supervisors, and then we'll talk about continuous professional development of the students, because both of them are involved in terms of creating a particular sort of research culture. We haven't had much of an opportunity to plan this out too much.
Yeah, it's okay.
But what I'm going to do, we'll work it this way. I will share with you some of the strategies we use at Victoria University, where we've been for quite a number of years attempting to establish a particular sort of research culture, moving away from a teaching-only institution to a more research-intensive institution. So I'll share with you some of those strategies and indicate how they might be of interest to you, and you perhaps could adapt and build upon them to meet your needs. And Yae will then, when I talk about a particular strategy, she'll comment from her perspective, which takes in both her own experience in research training in Australia and her experience here. So on both ends, in terms of becoming equipped as a professional researcher, and also the responsibilities to now ensure that that sort of equipping of professional researchers is occurring here at Gajah Mada. So the first part, focusing on some of the strategies for supervisors, and the second part, some of the strategies for students. Now, from my perspective, I'd point out, and you will have picked this up clearly, I hope, from yesterday, my comments are really determined by my commitment to the notion of demystifying what we're doing in an academic setting. That we simply can't assume that what we know in our heads is the same sort of thing that our colleagues, or particularly the students, know. And that often we might be giving advice or guidance or direction, but without the person to whom we're giving that advice, without them sharing our understanding, we might be simply mystifying things for them. Not helping them, not sharing with them, but mystifying things. And making them feel stupid, inadequate, I can't do your PhD because I don't understand what you're talking about. Okay. I'll talk about four things, only briefly, but I'll talk about four things, go through four initiatives at Victoria University for how some of the examples of how we go about trying to equip our supervisors for supervision. What sort of professional development as supervisors we're giving our colleagues. I'll just remind you of a slide I showed yesterday on the supervisor induction and compulsory workshops that all supervisors have to undertake at Victoria University. In fact, I'll jump forward to that now and then I'll just come back to this again. You might recall that slide from yesterday, and this is where supervisors are coming in and they want to be able to supervise, but they can't supervise until they've been properly inducted and trained and then registered. And I'll give you examples of the demystifying thesis supervision and the graduate certificate that a lot of our beginning early career researchers take in order to be able to supervise, and how they can begin at a level 1 associate supervisor, undertake more professional development opportunities to progress to a principal supervisor, and undertake more workshops, professional development, to become an experienced professional supervisor. And I'll talk to you a little bit about how we then use the experience of the principal research supervisors to mentor other more junior supervisors or staff members, early career staff who want to become supervisors. One of the problems that we found was that we had very experienced professors who had really got to the top of what they were doing, but we weren't giving them the opportunity to be able to then transfer their skill sets to more junior members or earlier career members of staff. And that completely wasted opportunity. So I'll talk a little bit about that, but then I'll talk about the 2-day intensive demystifying thesis supervision program that I run. Now this morning, all of you will have received via email the 3-day intensive demystify your thesis program for students. That's in your emails. That's now your copy. Okay, I'm sharing my intellectual property rights with you. Use it as you want, adapt it as you want. You'll find when you're reading through that program, and it's a document of about 160 pages of notes to go with the 3-day intensive program, and there might be 40, 50 different strategies that we use with our doctoral students and our high degree by research students in there. So glance through it, discuss it a little bit, see if you can adapt, share some of those exercises, use them for your own purposes. Then I'll talk about supervising research students. This is a program that early career researchers or early career staff take who want to gain an immersion into the experience of supervising. And I'll point out to you, this is where we link them up with those experienced professors to be able to be mentored to learn how to supervise. And finally, I'll talk a little bit about this supervision. Am I going to press the right one? Yeah. Supervision Toolkit ebook that I and a colleague at Victoria University and colleagues from 4 other universities across Australia put together some years ago, which is made up of 63 tools that supervisors can use. I'll just take you through that book. Again, this morning you received a copy of that ebook. So what I'll do in this session, I'll just indicate to you how to use that ebook, how best to use it, how to make sense of it. Okay, so we'll start. Did you want to add anything at this point, or?
No, just short comment that when I received your PowerPoint and then I was surprised this is your institution did it, that we have a few of the workshop but not as structured as your institution.
Which means that we've got a possibility here of sharing our expertise and our insights, and this could be a small example of how partnership actually works. Here we've got 2 individuals from 2 different institutions here. Here we've got a room full of colleagues. The commitment we share in common is that we want to professionally develop ourselves, our staff and our students. I've got some ideas in my head, some strategies at work. Yari's got strategies and ideas in her head. You've got strategies and ideas in your head. And when we have the 2 breakout sessions, we're particularly interested in you articulating what those strategies are. And even if it's only sort of flying a kite, you imagine what you might do. We're interested in those because that's how we actually move forward. Not simply reporting upon what we've already done, but imagining what we might do. And that's a really exciting part, I think, of professional development. This program, Demystifying Thesis Supervision, most of our early career academics will take this program. It's a 2-day intensive program. And the format of it, what we do, the Demystify Your Thesis program, that one that you've got a 160-page book from that looks like this. So you've all now, that's the email you received this morning. what we do with the staff, and remember this is a workbook or the notes of the workshop for the students. And the students come along with that, and nearly all of our doctoral students will attend that program. Probably about 6 months after enrolment they'll come to this program. And there they're exposed to my ideas, right? Because I develop the program and then I workshop it with the students. So I feel I'm under an obligation to now explain to my colleagues what I'm saying to their students, because they might not agree with what I'm saying. They might want to modify some of the things I'm saying. So the purpose of demystifying thesis supervision, the 2-day program with the supervisors, one of the primary intentions is to let them know what Ron Adams is telling their students. Because I'm not saying I've got the answers. I'm saying these are the strategies which I think are effective, but they're just my strategies. We have to take this as a partnership now, in terms of which you, the supervisor, also have to start thinking strategically about what you want to do with your student. So in a way it's a bit of a challenge to my colleagues to say, okay, I've spent some years thinking up these strategies. As a supervisor, I would like you now to also be thinking of strategies that you can use and you can share with your colleagues for professionally developing the students. And when you begin to get colleagues working together that way, that's when you begin to get a vibrant research culture. Because a culture isn't something that's out there, the culture is what exists between us. I mean, we're part of a research culture yesterday, today and tomorrow. We're establishing a culture through our joint activity. And I briefly mentioned yesterday, one of our challenges as supervisors, as people who are committed to professional development of our students, is to think about ways in which we inspire others. Both in how do we inspire our students, and how do we inspire our colleagues? I heard yesterday the problem that a number of you mentioned about many of the research students not really turning up and being committed to activities on campus, and you might hardly ever see them. Very difficult to establish a research culture where the people are simply not there. So the challenge for us is, what can we do to inspire those students to want to be here? What do we present to them to make them feel, oh, I'm missing out on something. I do not want to miss out on that. Do you want to add anything to that, Yale?
Yeah, maybe in the facilitation of the postgrad student from the PhD is still very limited, yeah, small room in the postgrad building. So we hope that when we have the new building, so the student can have like in Australia, I have my own station work, yeah. So this is very, very good for me. And then also we have like coffee break together, yeah. So we can like discuss with other PhD student and also our supervisor or other lecturer. So that's not really happen in our environment, yeah.
There's an interesting sort of reversal here, because
Yeah.
this is in your head. This is what, okay,
Yeah.
this is your vision.
Yeah.
This is what I'd like to see happening here at Gajamada over the next couple of years.
Yeah.
The unfortunate experience in Australia is that we used to have that situation some years ago, and it's dropped off.
Okay.
It's dropped off now. So how do we encourage the students to come in? When I was well, I have to admit it was in the 1970s that I did my PhD, so a long time ago. But I was part of a culture of postgraduate students and supervisors, and we all wanted to be together. We all fed off each other. It was a really exciting time. Then I went to the ANU as a research fellow in the 1980s. There I was engaged in research. I was in an enormous building, the Coombs building, where everyone involved in Pacific research was located. Some hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of staff, all our little offices. 10:30 though every morning, everyone left their office and came down to the coffee room, everyone. And that's where we made all these lateral connections. And that was an experience that we would not miss for our life. because it was such an inspiring experience. I look at my campus now, I go to the University of Melbourne. You don't have staff and students really wanting to get together, partly because we haven't got the infrastructure. You're talking about, okay, in your mind you've got an idea there's going to be a better facility to encourage students to come.
Yeah, and as well as the schedule, because our schedule is so tight. That's why the professor, the lecturer, they cannot coming for just coffee break, because from one schedule to another schedule they have to run. Yeah, so we should have a specific schedule. This is for coffee break, so everybody should don't have any touch.
There's another
It's
small...
my mind.
Yeah, I think is it true? It also will be nice if a PhD student can be stationed in the department, like when I was in the Netherlands, that every PhD student stationed in the department and they have a work cubicles by themselves and everything. But the important thing, but I also have an experience in other center in the Melbourne University. I haven't done any research with the Melbourne, but I have very good collaborators, Rosemary Nixon from Melbourne University, and they have a Center of Occupational and Skin, something like that. And many of the PhD students also not stationed there, and also other staff is not stationed there, because they have to be stationed in other occupational dermatology clinic in the rural area. But they have a special time for discuss, or maybe a special days, something like when I was in the, special days for discuss. And also there is a special session, for example, like weekly or monthly or even only 6 months, that we can share or discuss together. But the other things, because in Australia, on Victoria, there are many rural areas that we cannot come together and join, because the clinics has to be spread everywhere. And then they have a system that we call it the IT system, IT database system, that is already connected all over Victoria and even for other places in Australia. And even Rosemary also asking me to join to this system. They already have, if you want to pass, just go that, okay, I have to learn it myself. I have to be careful. Once I join your system, so I have the obligation, but they already have joined the system. And the system, IT system, is called like occupational something things, and then every occupational dermatology physician, or whether he is a PhD student, whether she is a postdoc, whether she's only the clinician, they can access and have granted the special password to go to that system. And don't have to be weekly, That's the things that I have to say. Physically, because compare when I was studying in the Netherlands, and my center, I'm the only one PhD student, international PhD student in dermatology department, which is working with Pieter Jan Koenraad and Mary-Louise Goetelaar. The other students is the Netherlands student, which they always speak Dutch. And then I don't know whatever they said as yos rotok dong sok rotok ora dong. Sometimes I understand what they say, and sometimes I understand what they say. And we doesn't have any regular session because it is very limited. But there are other group which it belong to, for example, Marcel Jongman. They have international student 3 or 4, and they have a regular session weekly. And then Awalia, I think it's okay. You can join. And then we can join and discuss.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
A couple of points. What I have discovered, and this is more from my center, is that we moved from one location to another, and then we grouped the PhD student on the first floor, and the ground floor is all the seniors inside offices, and that has effectively limited the interactions between support staff, PhD students, and the more senior. So just that move, and in terms of how the offices are planned, have actually had a quite significant effect. So I think locations are important. Another thing I just want to pick up from what you said, and that is that personally, I'm pretty happy to Zoom in and attend conferences that are online, where I don't need to relocate myself to a new location. We often speak about the limitations of not face-to-face, but I actually quite enjoy that from time to time, because it's a different way. It's when you would like to acquire knowledge or be part of it, but not interact with people and not spend all that time it takes to take yourself from the office, in the traffic, into new location. You know, you lose maybe 3 hours just by doing that move. So I think the potential of technology, and in a country like Indonesia, where I would assume it's huge, it's probably an issue with internet connection and stabilities in some rural and regional areas, but that should be an area which could be extended tremendously.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so maybe I can add in the postgrad student, the previous board, they established a cluster, but now Prof. Jufri changed, moved to the department. But when the cluster, so within the cluster of health promotion, I did the once a month only, 2 hours meeting, that the student can see the supervisor, and the student can also talk and discuss about the progress of their dissertation, and they like very much. So that's why I just imagine if this is running, we do not need to do every day, but maybe once a week, or twice a month, or something like that. Yeah.
I'll talk a little bit about this unit that we run. This is one of our central units for having early career staff mentored in the role of supervisors. So these are early career staff who want to become supervisors but haven't got the experience of having worked with a research student to be able to get registration. So they don't have access yet to a PhD student until they get registered. But there's a bit of a problem there, because if they don't have access to a PhD student, how do they gain the experience in order to get registration? So this is what we've done. Now, I'd also point out, this GCTE stands for Graduate Certificate of Tertiary Education. And every new academic coming into Victoria University in the first 2 years has to complete this Graduate Certificate in Tertiary Education. And now, Graduate Certificate of Tertiary Education, provided by the university, provided, I think, an equivalent program provided by most universities in Australia, and they will learn, well, most of it is to do with core curriculum matters. My unit, Supervision of Student Research, is only an elective unit. People don't have to take it, but people who do take it, that will count towards their graduate certificate. Okay. Now, this is the way it works. We've got, let's say you're a new staff member, you've come into Victoria University, you have to undertake in the first 2 years the graduate certificate. You think, oh yes, I'd like to do this Supervision of Research Students unit. So you will link up with me, as I'm the coordinator of the unit. Then my job is to help you find a senior supervisor, someone who is already supervising many students, to put you in contact with them, and then that senior supervisor will allow you to work with one of their students on a particular problem. The senior supervisor might say, I've got this student who has got a real difficulty with this particular methodology, or who doesn't understand how to work with this theory, or who can't really write up their results, or might be a smaller thing, doesn't know how to write an abstract, doesn't know how to interview people as part of their research project, but a particular sort of problem. You then meet up with the student and You work out with the student how you are going to approach that problem to fix it up. And your job and what you're doing in the unit and what you get assessed on for completing this unit, you have to work out an intervention to deal with that student's problem. What am I going to get them to read? What am I going to do with them? Who am I going to introduce them to? Is there a workshop I can set? A lot of it will be you sitting down with the student, working out precisely what the problem is. The senior supervisor might have said, this student has got a problem, they don't understand the methodology. When you sit down, you might discover, no, that's not the real problem. The real problem is that this woman has got 3 children at home and she can't find the time to read up about this methodology. That might be, so you working closely on that one particular problem means it's more likely that you'll discover what the real causes of that problem are. Now, having discovered what the causes are, and you're, at the same time as you're working with this student, you're also working with the senior supervisor. So you're sort of mediating between the student and the student's problem and the senior supervisor. So you are also professionally developing your senior colleague. Because you're now saying to your senior colleague, oh, listen, the problem isn't really about methodology. The problem is that she can't find the time because of her family commitments. Let's work out a way that we can resolve that problem. Now, you come up with an intervention. This is what your job is. You'll meet with this student maybe once a fortnight, once a week. You'll develop an intervention to help her deal with the problem. She will then apply that intervention. And the intervention in this case might be, okay, I'm going to put her in touch with the childcare facility on campus, and every Monday morning she can leave her children there, and that'll give her 4 straight hours to focus on this methodology problem. So you work out what the intervention is, you trial it with her, and then you evaluate how effective it is. By the end of 3 months, you have to have evaluated to what extent has this intervention that I've thought of, to what extent has it dealt with the problem. And it won't always deal with the problem, but that's a very valuable learning experience if you find out, no, it only deals with this part of the problem, not this other part of the problem. So at the end of 3 months, so I can actually move on to the next slide, I think.
Before, the slide before. Yeah, I don't know about the GTTA, but maybe I discussed with her that this is in Europe, this is the European Credit Transfer System. It is something like this. I don't know whether the same. That's ECTS. So, for example, again, myself would like to get the PhD from University of Groningen. I have to have for 4 years is 30 ECTS, European Credit Transfer System. And the ECTS, I can get this one in the Groningen or the first appointment of the university, but I also can get the other things. And for example, because my supervisor is not good in lab, and then I went to Malmö, Sweden to have the ECTS, something like that, of course it's that. And also the ECTS can be from the conference, ECTS can be from the lab work, ECTS can be from the seminars online, but as long as it's already stated that this was being accredited by the European Credit Transfer System, so it's meant that it will be like this. Yeah.
Our system isn't quite that sophisticated, and we've got no sort of transferability there of the qualification. But it sounds like the impetus is similar. You know, the reasons are similar. Notice what actually happens here. We've got 4 half-day workshops. Right, so there's minimal intervention on my part. I'm the facilitator of the unit, but I only have to be available for 4 half-day workshops. And they're 1 month apart. In that month between the workshops, the trainee supervisor is doing what they're doing with the student. They're monitoring it, they're developing the intervention, they're evaluating its effectiveness. They come back after a month for the second half-day workshop, and there they report on their progress. At the same time, we're giving them exposure to other important aspects of becoming a supervisor. She's getting this hands-on experience of working with this one student, but she also needs to know about, well, what do I have to do in terms of the national guidelines, in terms of the institutional requirements? She has to be familiar with those if she's going to be an effective supervisor. So we're also at these workshops, as well as getting a progress report from her on how she's going with the student, we're also getting in other staff to talk about these are the policies, these are the regulations, these are the ethical requirements, whatever it might be.
Excuse me. So with the position that you told me, that's the mediator, how many problems of students that we should overcome until we get what? You know what I mean? Like the measuring tools that I am now competent as a senior. Is that what you mean? After we overcome some problems, then what can indicate that I'm now capable enough, then I can be position myself on the...
Okay.
Yeah.
At the end of this unit, you have to submit a 2,500 word report on, okay, this, well, except it could be a series of dot points. It doesn't have to be like a published article, right? But we want you to be very clear on this is the problem that I identified. This is the intervention I put into practice to try to deal with this problem. This is my evaluation of how successful the intervention was. So it's just enabling you, it's giving you the opportunity to reflect upon the process. Now, 2,500 words, if you give me 1,200 words and you do that perfectly, I'm not going to criticise you because where are the other 1,300 words? I said 2,500. Or if you want to elaborate in 4,000 words, that's fine. But as long as you're very clear on this is a problem, this is the intervention, this is my evaluation of how successful the intervention was for dealing with that problem. That's one thing you have to provide. There's another thing you have to provide as an assessment, and that is a reflective portfolio. And that simply is a journal that you will have kept during the 3 months in which you reflect upon what am I experiencing as a person who's becoming a supervisor. How equipped do I feel for this task or this task? What other professional development? By the end of 3 months, you might have this, say you're working with this imaginary scenario we said before. Yes, you put this woman in touch with the childcare people, but you realise there's a much bigger institutional problem here that's disadvantaging female researchers at the university. But you don't know how to deal with that problem. So part of your reflective portfolio will be, I've identified here a much bigger issue, I don't know how to deal with it. But if I'm going to deal with it, or if the university is going to deal with it, these are some of the things we might need to try. Perhaps we have to get our HR department looking at revisiting our equity policy. Maybe we have to get some specialists in who can talk about other ways of approaching this sort of problem. So you're also gaining an awareness of this is how I've progressed as a supervisor, but these are the further steps I need to take in order to get to where I want to be. We usually have about, per year, 15 students doing this, so it's only a small group, about the size of this group here.
So maybe you can tell us, because this is day 1 workshop and then they go to the self-directed learning phase 1. So is there any certain days that, day 1 to day 2, it is in 1 week? 1 week or?
Oh no, okay.
This one.
Yeah.
This one.
This one's 1 month between day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. So that's 3 months from the beginning to the end. 1 month. 1 month between.
Yeah, so you have self-directed learning for 1 month, yeah?
For 1 month.
Okay. Yeah. So he asked,
No.
Yeah.
One whole month. No, it's not that easy. 1 whole month there, another month there, another month there.
Yeah.
Now you'll notice down the end there, I've got, well, one of the outcomes is the submission of the report, the progress report on the intervention. The other thing that's submitted is this personal portfolio on your reflection on how you're developing as a supervisor. The other thing that we've found, the other outcome from this action-led approach is that we're creating communities of practice. We find that the people who have worked together in this group, they tend to stay together. They keep in contact. They support each other. They continue to discuss their issues with each other because they've already had 3 months' experience of working mainly via the web, via the internet, with this group of people. So they've got a support network now within the university. They don't revert to simply being an isolated early career researcher. They're now moving into being part of a network, being part of a circle, and again contributing to the development of a research culture. Now, something like that, I think something like that would be achievable here, wouldn't it?
Yeah, if 1 month, yeah, once a month meeting, yeah, I think it can be, yeah.
3 hours once a month.
Yeah, 3 hours once a month. I think we can make it. Yeah, I can ask Bukandes, the Vice Dean of Academic Affairs, to make their schedule.
And then, I mean, if say you or this group are really interested in pursuing this, I'd simply send you all the material because this is, we've written it up as a unit. You receive all the material. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. How do we change this? How do we adapt this so it meets our needs? Because otherwise, it puts an enormous administrative burden on 1 or 2 people to have to, from scratch, dream up what the system is.
Yeah.
Okay, the other thing that you received this morning, and this is where I'll have to wake you up here, my friend. Okay, this is where we're going into that supervisor e-book. Okay. Now, that's it. For me to move on, can I use this or I need to use that? I can use this, you think? Let me see. Oh, I can. Very good. All right. That's me too. It feels like magic. Okay. All of you received this morning in an email again this resource book. Now, this is 5 universities got together a few years ago, experienced supervisors, and we thought, what are the tools that other supervisors need to deal with problems? We've got 63 tools in this publication, and it's organised under different subject headings. Selecting for success. We've got all these tools on issues of selecting for success. A tool on, for instance, identifying your role in the application selection decision process. Attracting prospective higher degree by research candidates to work with you. And that can be a real issue for an early career researcher. Informal profiling of student capabilities, another tool. Probing the research project's feasibility and fit. Screening potential members of the supervisory team, and so on. Let's have a look at a couple of what the tools are so that you can see what they are. Oh, and you see there are all these other areas as well. Managing the relationships with the student, supervisor development, early exit strategies for students who are not going to really succeed at the PhD, doing the research, finalising the thesis, and so on. This is tool A1.2, attracting prospective HDR candidates to work with you. And then there are some suggestions here for what you can do to attract capable students to come and work with you, to be supervised by you. A number of strategies are outlined there. Or informal profiling of student capabilities. A template here that you could use or you could adapt for, okay, what are the sorts of things I need to know about this student in order to know what I need to do to equip this student to undertake doctoral research. So effectively it's an audit tool. It's a tool that enables a supervisor to audit what the existing capabilities are of the student. Probing academic background and potential. Probing English language competence, and giving the sorts of questions which are necessary to ask to actually be able to establish, well, what is the language competence of this student? Probing the research project's feasibility and fit. Is this project feasible? How well does it fit with what this department can offer? How well does it fit with my own research capability? I don't want to get a student that I really can't help because I am not expert in that area. I don't want to get a student whose project is so different from what the department is interested in that the department won't really be interested in supporting them. A weighted risk assessment. Assessing potential supervisory teams. Some of the factors we need to take into account for when you are putting a team together to supervise a student. And so on. Now, as I say, there are 63 of these tools overall. You've now got that book. I suggest you start to flick through it, see what might be relevant to you. Some of them I think you'll be able to use immediately, some of those tools. Other tools you'll think, oh well, it doesn't actually meet my need here, but I could come up with my own tool. I could adjust it and come up with a tool which is going to really meet the needs here at Gajah Mada.
This one?
Yeah.
We actually, Pak Yodi and some of staff is also develop a book, but this guidance book, but maybe in the future we will make like this. But up to now, the only book that we already have is the guidance panduan, S3, and academic, academic two books, So, maybe we need, something like that, But the training for the supervisor, we did, but as I told you, that is not in the structure, not yet. So,
Okay. Remember, this was a result of an initiative going across 5 institutions in Australia. Right, it was a partnership. We had to overcome the natural sort of jealousy in Australia to work with colleagues from other institutions to pool our resources. And there'll be some of my bosses who would say, you can't tell them your secrets. That's for us. That's got a commercial advantage. So we overcame that. And what we're doing now, I'm suggesting to you, we've also got the opportunity to cross the national borders, as well as the institutional borders. So you don't have to come up and develop something the same as this if you can use this. If you can use this, use it, adapt it. Make the less work for yourself, the least possible work for yourself.
And then maybe add with our context,
Absolutely, yeah. And I'll just say this one thing too. If Gajah Mada, as it is, I think, is interested in positioning itself as a top university in Indonesia, I mean, at the moment you're sort of in 1, 2 or 3 and there's a bit of jockeying there, but if you want to stay up there and you want to actually get to the top, you've got an opportunity to be thinking about, well, what do we need to do, not only to meet the needs at Gajah Mada, but to meet the needs of the higher education system right across Indonesia. Also.
Yes. Yes, what I just wanted to emphasize is, yes, it's excellent to use material that has been developed elsewhere, and there also the resource base that you said in the UK, right? But sometimes there is a process between the materials and the open access of material, and then to internalize and to make it your own. And knowing that Ron and his colleagues, he spent several years and continuing, this is one of your key expertise areas, and you know this inside out. So what I'm suggesting is that there need to be some promoters within Gajah Mada that actually take a lead and are committed to take on this as a process and localize it and being the carriers of it.
Who wants to take a lead?
Okay, I also want to add the things that I really very impressed with that, because on the last meeting with the important people in here in Indonesia, the important things, if we want to take a lead, it's It's not make other university as a rival, but make it partner. And I already did it. Oh yeah, make it partner. Okay, we already did it in my field myself. For example, like from the University of Indonesia and other university and me, for example. Okay, and then I say, okay, you will be the leader. It's okay, you will be the leader. But can you help me to do the research and development as a? It's okay, I will help you. And then so we make a friend. And do you have any batik? Do you want to do research in the batik industry in Kulon Progo? So we have a field for it. Oh, I'll be happy with that. And this is important things that the important people in Indonesia told me, that make a friend. And as long as for the benefit of the country, the whole country, it will be success. But if you want to be a leader and only you want to be, this is Gajah Mada. So I don't think it will be success, because we need other university to work together.
I totally agree with you. And link that with the point that Orsa just made there. As well as making these friends across institutions, the person who's making the friends needs to be a local champion. You do need someone within the institution who's going to take this on as a project to establish those sorts of links. And then there's a role for leadership here. Is that person going to be acknowledged and recognised for their efforts, for instance, by, it might be the Dean of the Faculty? Is it going to enable them to get the sort of recognition that could count towards promotion? If it's seen as a valuable sort of role that is serving both the whole of the higher education system in Indonesia and serving Gajah Mada, this needs to be recognised. There needs to be a reward for that. But you do need those people who are prepared to take it on, and people will not be prepared to take it on if the leadership does not support them and recognise what they're doing.
Yeah, right.
And just to add one more thing, I think that this is my own opinion, not only because I like you. This is because medicine is a field where most, including Indonesia, but most emerging countries, developing countries, if they have some areas of strong research capabilities, it's usually in medicine, in agriculture, sometimes in energy, transport, and that sort of area. Business is coming up, but leave that alone, because we don't want this to be bastardized with the business people. No, then it becomes a managerial, oh, you have no idea. No, you have no idea. So what I'm suggesting is that you are actually well placed. In addition to your disciplinary expertise and profound knowledge and passion for what you are doing, you're also champions to drive a research culture, and hence some of these sort of instruments and tools would be ideal if you had as a part of being the champions and to drive forward. This is just a challenge to you.
Yeah. So let's start thinking and doing.
And on that, we'll start thinking
Doing.
right now. Okay. Now it's your turn to group together and start doing some of that thinking. And what we'd like you to do is to follow the pattern we had yesterday of breaking up into 3 breakout groups at 3 tables where you've got access to the butcher's paper, and then discuss this question. In your experience, what has been, or if you haven't really had that experience, what would be helpful in professionally developing you as a supervisor? Now, you here is a collective you, not just you personally, but helping you and your colleagues develop as a supervisor. What are some of the practical sorts of measures that you think might be effective in developing you and your colleagues as supervisors? And the people coming behind you as supervisors. And here, we're asking you to not simply record what's been done, but to imagine what might be done. Right? It's an opportunity for your imagination to sort of exert itself, to manifest itself. How will we just have the 1, 2, 3 break up again?
Yes, because it's 12.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's good
So
for.
this is 1, 2, 3, 1, 3. You're number 3, okay. All right. So, we've got number 1s, people can perhaps go to that table. Number 2 to that far table, because there's a butcher's paper there. And number 3 to this table. How long before we report back? Because we've got more after this, but this is... All right. 10 minutes. If you can go and spend 10 minutes, use the butcher's paper, and then be prepared to report back in 10 minutes' time to the group. Thank you.
Tinggi badannya, jujur aku ragu soalnya.
Standardized, well developed. Kemudian there is a system for us to upgrade.
Upgrading system. Tapi itu kan masuk sistem, masuk ke sistem.
Jadi system for supervision kan misalnya contohnya
Ini masuk di breakdownnya, nanti pas di subheading pas dijelaskan. Waktu nanti dibaca.
itu tulis aja Mbak, ntar lupa.
Oh, nggak panah-panah aja. Poin-poinnya.
Nah gitu dong dari tangan.
Ini maksudnya dari filternya atau?
Enggak dari recruitment-nya.
Iya,
Recruitment, kemudian training and education-nya. Rekrutmen untuk supervisor, rekrutmennya. Ini kan bagaimana supervisor yang baik.
Structured plan. Gitu kan. Masuk ya. Karena ini cocok. Yang kedua tadi. Pro model.